what you have and what a great thing it is, whether it's Quality Matters or another quality assurance program. Please do not quote me. It's about having something in place to be able to make that transition to online very quickly. So that's what Quality Matters is about. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the origins of Quality Matters because you may not have ever heard of it. I'm going to put a link in the chat, and I would invite you, instead of me screen sharing, to go to this link if you want to toggle to that while I talk about how Quality Matters started. And I'd like to briefly tell you how I got involved with Quality Matters. I was just like you. I was at an institution that adopted Quality Matters as their quality assurance program, and it was adopted at University of Central Missouri when I was there as a program director and also teaching in curriculum instruction at the same time. And part of their rollout was that we took the Applying the Quality Matters rubric workshop, which was intense, but I felt right at home, and it really helped me to be able to teach blended courses and to go online eventually when the department was ready for us to take courses online. So I've been involved with applying the rubric itself and developing quality online courses since about 2007. So I've been around for a while. I've served in directorship roles, and so I've rolled out, I can't say I did it as well as Rob has done it, but I certainly tried, and I brought Quality Matters with me to 3 different institutions and rolled out quality assurance programs just like Rob has done, but not to the same degree. I actually was at University of Kansas for 4 years and worked with the University of Kansas Medical Center, and then connected with their campus in Lawrence to roll out Quality Matters and helping take programs online. So that's just a little bit about me that's not really important, but I just want you to know that I've been using this model in my own life as a faculty, and now working with Quality Matters, training faculty, working with designers who often know more than I do. So it's always been a collegial and collaborative event in my life. And I've been working with Quality Matters 4 years full-time as a professional development specialist, working with people like you who are my colleagues, training you how to design quality online courses. So I just want you to know I've walked in your shoes. This is an incredibly difficult time. I know you're extremely busy. Our professional development right now is 500% more in requests than we've ever had during this quarter. So I can imagine what you're all dealing with if you're trying to take your courses online. So real quickly, if you have the page open, really what happened was Quality Matters was really just like the group like you and I all gathered here together, who got together, and they were all in and around Maryland, a number of community colleges and universities. They got together. They were a consortium, not unlike Colleague to Colleague, which is our regional consortium that we have. And they were concerned faculty back in the early 2000s when it was just really following the .com bust. I think you all remember that going on. Well, I think they were looking at it from the perspective of it's a .edu bust. So you have a lot of for-profit colleges and universities who are developing online programs really to meet the needs of learners who want to go back to school and start new careers. But the consortium was extremely concerned about the quality of what was being rolled out, and they were also rolling things out at their community colleges. And so basically they met on a monthly basis, and they decided to write for a FIPSI grant. That was in 2003, and they were awarded $500,000. And you can imagine what that $500,000 paid for. It didn't pay for computers or printers or really any technology. It paid for faculty to decrease their workload, and they received funds to do research on course design, basically good pedagogy, but also looking at best practices. And what we saw roll out in the 90s, that was web-based pages, email correspondence. And so they began to do the research. And I remember looking at the list of articles, and in the mind like mine, which I can imagine you can understand this, I really wanted to read all 200 articles that they included that were, evidence-based practice. They were peer-reviewed articles. I never got a chance to, but I read about a dozen of them and decided that it was really something that they'd already done for us. And I had a great appreciation for what they developed, which was the first QM rubric, which was released in 2005, and it was open source. And the consortium actually had no plans at all to do anything other than get something out there that was free for the entire community so that they had a rubric basically just to help them establish and develop quality online courses. So that's what happened. Rob told me you all have been given one of these. Is that correct? Do you all have one of these lovely rubrics in your possession? If you do,
they're getting one. They don't have one yet.
Oh, that is so sad. No, actually, it's probably good because the cover will fall off. You will use it, and this is about, I usually go through 5 per edition. I can usually make one. You know, once the cover falls off, I'm like, please send me a new one. So I'm going to tell you what, this is truly, once I have every copy except for the first edition, and I think it's worth about 0.25 million now. I'm kidding, that's not true, I have no idea. I would love to have a copy of the first edition. But anyway, so basically, if you look at that link, you'll see how much money was awarded. They spent 3 years working on the research and then developing the rubric. And they met in person because, you know, back then, you know, a lot of this wonderful technology that we have is not available. So they met in person, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to hear the discussion, I will not say arguments, on what are the 8 general standards going to be, or how many general standards are there going to be. And I don't think there were any fisticuffs. I actually am a colleague of Mary Wells, who wrote the grant, and she is one of the most lovely people I've ever worked with. And I'm sure that whatever it took, she kept peace in those meetings as they discussed what are we going to put in this rubric that is critical. And if you don't already know, we are on the 6th edition. So basically they made this rubric, and then the community, not just the Maryland area consortium community, as they distributed this, there was a great demand for, well, thank you so much for all the work that you've done to provide this rubric, but we don't know how to apply it. You're the ones who've done the research. So it basically evolved into developing professional development to be able to explain what the 8 standards are and what do they encompass. And over the 6th editions, the committee continues to convene, not the same committee. About every 3 years, the process starts over again, and Quality Matters members, not necessarily me, I can offer to serve on the committee, but it's members from around the world. People across universities across the United States, and even people from different countries are very involved in helping look at the current research literature and what has really changed. An example of what has really changed is the increased need to design our courses to be accessible using universal design. And I'm guessing Rob probably, if he hasn't talked to you about that yet, he will. And that's just covered in one of the general standards. So when you get your rubric, I'd like for you to take time to open up the rubric. And on the very first couple of pages, there's great information. But if you look on page 4, it's gonna outline what the 8 general standards are. Okay, so basically, the first general standard is the course overview and introduction. And this is extremely important because I think you all know from the moment the learner enters the online classroom, it really isn't any different than if they walked into a classroom, you weren't present, there was no one else there except for them, and there were no instructions on what to do first and how to navigate the course. No syllabus, no information how to get the syllabus. And so General Standard 1 talks about all the things that you want to do to help your learners get started. Rob talked about how overwhelming this can be, so QM encourages you to look at the 23 essential specific review standards. Those are the 3 pointers. Look at those first. Many of those can be met actually in your syllabus. And I'm not sure, Rob may even have a syllabus template for you where a number of those standards are met. But then we move to General Standard 2, and General Standard 2 begins the foundation of the course, which is your measurable course level objectives and your measurable module and unit level objectives. And then it goes on to talk about other very important things that have to do with your learning objectives or competencies if you're doing any competency-based courses. And it's very specific about what does a measurable objective look like, and what do module and unit level objectives look like that support and are consistent with your course level objectives. And that's critical. It's the foundation for aligning your course to ensure that the learners are successful. Then we move on to General Standard 3, which has to do with assessment and measurement. And I think you may be familiar with the idea of backwards design. And for many universities that are having to go online quickly, they're looking at how they're currently assessing and measuring their learners. And from that, they're building backwards to add module and unit level objectives, because I know that you all currently have course level objectives in your syllabus. But as you move online, you need to provide modules and units that take your learners step by step on how they climb up Bloom's taxonomy to reach the level of Bloom's that you want them to be successful at, whether that's just application or synthesis or analysis. But you have to provide the scaffolding, the ladder for them to climb that you do in the unit and modules. So General Standard 4 is about your instructional materials. I'm assuming most of you are using textbooks. You may be using open educational resources. Rob is probably working with you on that to ensure that you have any additional resources that you need, which may be you building and making your own lectures using technology provided for you at your campus. So General Standard 4 talks about instructional materials. General Standard 5 is about learning activities, and that's a big I don't want to say it's a big issue, but when you move from a live classroom where you can see the looks on your learner's face when they absolutely have no idea what you're talking, or when they start to get sleepy and they nod off after lunch. In an online learning environment, unless you're using Zoom or another conferencing technology, you need to be very mindful of how are you going to actively engage your learners to get them excited like you do when they're in the classroom. One faculty who I worked with at University of Kansas, I watched her one time recording her lectures in her office. I walked by, and I would have thought that she was standing in an auditorium with 1,000 people, because she didn't sit at her desk. She stood up, she was waving her arms just as if she were doing a lecture in her classroom. And she provided 15 to 20-minute, very engaging lectures. I'm not going to tell you what the topic was because I think that might put you off, but yes, they were very engaging. So we moved to General Standard 6, which has to do with the technology and the tools that you are choosing to use in the online environment to help your learners be engaged and successful. And all of these things obviously are going to be looking back to align with your course level objectives and your module level objectives. General Standard 7 is about learner support. I would definitely tell you that I know that Rob and his team have General Standard 7 covered, and Emporia State University has all the links that you need to ensure that your learners have access for academic success, student support, technical support, accessibility, and your accessibility office information, and so forth. When we get to General Standard 8, here's where we start talking about what the design of your course looks like. Right down to what size font are you using? Are you using heading styles in case a learner has to use a screen reader so that they can jump through your Word documents, through your PDFs? Are you using selectable and searchable PDFs, not scanned PDFs? Do you have closed captions for the videos that you're using of your lectures or transcripts? And it talks about usability and readability and universal design for learning, among other things. Now, I know that I just piled a bunch of information on you, but those are the 8 general standards that have not changed much over almost 2 decades, that are still, it's the same pedagogical practices, best practices on teaching and learning, specifically dealing with design that directly impacts what happens when your course starts and you begin to deliver your course. Now, I'm going to stop talking so that Rob can tell me what I didn't cover about the rubric in an overview or about QM's history, and any questions that he might have or that you might have that I can answer about quality matters and what we do. I will tell you we care very much about what all of you are doing, and we are here to support and provide whatever we can for all of you to be successful. Go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, Kathy. I really want them to be able to ask some questions if they may have, but maybe we'll get the conversation started by saying we just came off, just before lunch, we came off of a weighty, heady topic of modules, the QM Standard 2, General Standard 2, and alignment, of the activity to the module, to the course, to the program. And if you're new to all this, your head is probably exploding, right? Can you maybe do a better job than I did of sort of breaking that down a little bit about why that's so important?
I will certainly try. QM uses a symbol of what might look like the Parthenon, and at the bottom of of this diagram is the foundation, which are those measurable course and learning objectives and your module and unit. That's the foundation that everything builds. But instead of jumping, through those, at the top, the capstone is your assessment. And so in between the foundation, which are the objectives, and the capstone, which is how you're going to assess them, what's in between is the instructional materials that support them, the learning activities that engage them, because we know from the research literature that if you align your learning activities and engage the learner, that they're more likely to succeed, and not just succeed, but persist in the course. So the concept of alignment is literally weaving all of those things together tightly so that you are very tightly focused on choosing, and I want to be exact about the exact instructional materials, the right learner activity and tools that point directly back to whatever your course level objectives are asking the learner to do. So if you are engaging them in a discussion in your unit or module, you should have an objective that says discuss and then whatever topic it is. And then you also have to follow that through with having discussion questions that point directly back to your unit or module level objective that you should be able to point to a course level objective. One of the tools that I have always used and practiced with working with faculty is a course map. And I'm not sure if Rob has gotten to course maps yet. When I work with faculty, When I work with faculty, we start with one module. And we look at that one module and we drill down using multiple Bloom's taxonomy resources, because you know what I found? If you can find just the right verb for exactly what you want them to do, if you're reviewing a bunch of the taxonomy resources with measurable verbs, I actually can come up with more engaging assessments, because what I really want them to do is to be able to diagram something or map something rather than just to explain it. I want them to actually engage with the content. And so I might actually change a module or unit level objective to create a more interactive or engaging assessment. So I hope that kind of helps. Again, you have the module level objectives and the course level objectives at the bottom, assessments at the top. You might even change your assessment a little bit, but the pillars in between are the instructional materials, the learning activities, which in some way the learning activities are just the consumption of the instructional materials. But if they're just doing textbook and there's nothing that they're interacting with, now they are cognitively interacting by reading the textbook. But if you're not providing study guide questions or maybe a presentation or a quiz where you ask them to read and then take a quiz, you really want them to be manipulating the information that is inside of their head cognitively by getting them to interact with those instructional materials in preparation for a summative assessment. So those formative assessments, maybe you can give them 2 chances on a quiz or have a matching activity. So that's kind of the interaction part. And then the tools are, a quiz is a tool, a discussion forum is a tool. Quality Matters, one of the things that they talk about is that you don't have to have a lot of really fancy tools. Now, if your university has easy to use tools like Zoom, for example, and Rob, I'm not sure how that's all rolling out. If faculty are going to be able to do some synchronous sessions and do blended, which is, it's not considered fully online, it would be blended, but that's a wonderful way for you to meet with your students on a weekly basis, discuss some of the more complex part of issues they're having with content, that you would be the interactive instructional material in your lecture, and the Q&A would be that interactive part where you have learner to learner, learner to content, which you're providing, and learner to you, learner instructor, because you're the subject matter expert. So when you tie all those things together, that is what QM calls alignment, which is, if you're in Kansas, we call it the yellow brick road to success for the learner. So, and since you guys are in Kansas, if you want, we can call it the yellow brick road, but it's those golden paved stones that you align to take the learner from the beginning of the course through scaffolding, using Bloom's taxonomy, if you need to start at the lowest level where they're identifying key terms that you're going to be using throughout the course, and you move up where they're going to actually discuss and apply what they've learned. And then hopefully, if you're able to, they might actually develop something where we get all the way up to the creative level where they're using what they've learned to create, develop, or design something. And I would encourage you for interaction, instead of them dumping their creative projects that they've developed into a Dropbox that only you see, I would encourage you to use a discussion forum where they share, give feedback, do peer evaluations. You can keep that where you only see it, and if you want to share it with them, you can. But if you have access to Zoom, if you can have 2 times where you meet where they do applied demonstrations and they actually share with their peers and learn from each other, that's when I think we get to a high level of engagement for General Standard 5. If you can do that, not only will it save you time because you're going to be grading as they're going instead of grading one thing at a time, you can also get great ideas from some of your what I call them super successful learners who are very engaged and excited about the content like you are. I even repurpose some student presentations, some student work with permission. And that is also something that learners get really excited about. If you say, hey, your work was an exemplar, that also influences persistence because you're engaging the learner by rewarding them for doing hard work and also setting the bar very high. And QM does not use this term, but I feel comfortable sharing this. I used to tell my faculty, raise the bar and swing it like a nunchuck. Rigor, relevance, and relationships. Online, you have to take risks, so I add a 4th R, and I add a 5th R, reality. What can you do? What technology do you have? What kind of bandwidth do your learners have at home? So you may be able to take some risk. If it works, great. If it doesn't, scrap it and try something different. So just remember the 5 R's, and the rubric will really help you design for the 5 R's. Rigor, relevance, relationships, reality is definitely in the rubric. Risk is something I would encourage you to take with the support of Rob's team on doing what you can to integrate tools that the learners have access to that are easy or relatively easy to use to engage them. Rob, did that help with tying those together? I mean, I'm sorry about the Yellow Brick Road. I can't help it.
Yeah, it did. Thank you, Kathy. You know, something you touched on, I wanted to bounce off of that I think is germane to this group, and it just sort of gave me a little bit of a nudge. One of the things that Kathy mentioned was the taking some of your exemplar students and being able to repurpose their assignments. There's actually a term for that. That is a term we refer to in the community as a renewable assignment. And you may think, a renewable assignment, what are you talking about? Well, most assignments that you have students submit are what's called disposable assignments. You have them complete a project or a paper, what have you, you grade it, and then what happens to that project or paper or assignment? Vaporizes, you never see it again. Student got their grade, off they go, everybody's doing their own thing. Never see it again, never surfaces. A renewable assignment allows either the student or the faculty member to be able to take and reconstitute that assignment and put that back out into the user community. So for example, you can make it as broad in scope or as narrow in scope as you want. In other words, you can open it up to the entire open community, or you can say, no, I just want nursing students at Emporia State to be able to see this and reuse it. So what you do is you take the project, the completed effort that the student did, and you celebrate that project by making it openly available and accessible for other students to see. It's called a renewable assignment. Similarly, the faculty member can take her construct, her assignment construct, and she can put that into the open community to share among Emporia State faculty or department or what have you. So other faculty can partake in that assignment, look at it, use it as it is, adapt it, modify it, but it all becomes kind of this share and share alike. But other students benefit from this renewable assignment idea because they can actually see what their predecessor students did.
Thanks, Rob. I wrote that down. I like that because it goes with reuse, reduce, recycle. I'm adding renewable. That's really great. Do you guys have any questions that I might be able to answer? Or if I can't, I'll find out who can. It's never a good sign if you don't have questions.
So the floor is yours, everybody. We've got them tongue-tied.
Well, it sounds like you've been filling their minds full. Lynette, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Kathy. I was wondering, the 5 R's that you talked about, are they in that book that we're going to get, or is that something you can share with us?
It's just something that I've developed myself over the years. I was always about rigor. I mean, especially going online, the last thing we want to do is lose rigor. And I found that going online, you don't lose rigor, because what happens is over the years, we all heard of pedagogy, right? And then we learned about andragogy, right? Adult learners. Well, there's now a new term called heutagogy. And I learned about heutagogy, and from heutagogy, I added the additional, R's in the idea with rigor. Specifically, online learners become independent. So basically, the course can be more rigorous because we're teaching them to fish. Instead of sitting in a lecture classroom, they really have to be more engaged and more involved in their learning if the course is rigorously designed. So you are welcome to use those 5 R's. I do not know if anyone else has used those. I have just added to them because in my experience, faculty were willing to take risks and try new tools to try to engage learners, especially in large classrooms, not just online, but in large classrooms, to get students more engaged. And so I would say, you know what, are you willing and ready to take a risk? Let's try this tool or technology and see if this helps. And then I added reality, because we can never forget that not all our learners have the same access to technology or the same skill level to even use technology. And when we go online, it's a little harder to ensure that they have access to someone. But trust me, someone, even if they're my age, while I'm relatively comfortable with technology because I don't really have a choice, and they didn't tell me that when I got that master's degree, my adult children are much more savvy. And so as I learned how to use technology, I would just ask them. So consider that when you're thinking about taking some risks, and encourage your learners, if they don't feel comfortable with technology, to reach out to someone from one generation lower. Millennials, or even, I don't even know what they call them now, Rob. They keep changing the name of the next 2 generations, so I'm not even going to touch that one. Now with COVID-19, there's a whole new group they're calling Zoomers. We're all meeting our families on Zoom. So this, in a sense, I would never say that there's anything good about what is happening, but I will say that we're all being forced to use technology just in our everyday lives more, just to stay connected. So you're welcome to use those 5 R's. Please do a search to see if someone else has copyrighted them, but those are my 5 R's. I encourage you to try new things, take risks. If they don't work, scrap them, try something new, and help your learners and be aware of the reality that they live in, and support them with you as you adopt technologies to help engage them. I hope that answered your question, Lynette. I'll send those 5 R's. I'm sure Rob will remember them. But I will also reply to the email that Rob sent out. Since you don't have your rubrics yet, I'm going to send you a PDF that has all the general standards and the specific review standards. It's open source. It doesn't have the annotations. And the annotations are the meat and the heart of how you apply those. But at least you'll have that PDF in your hand that we've talked about, something in supporting what we've talked about in our brief time together today. Thank you for asking a question. I always feel terrible if no one asks anything. But I understand that's an iMessage. You're welcome, Lynette.
Okay, last chance. We've kept Kathy her half hour, so last chance to ask any questions from anybody. Okay, well, if you have any questions that come to mind, pass them on to me, and I'll be happy to pass those on to Kathy. Kathy, thank you so much. I know you're swamped like everybody right now. I just
I
feel.
know that you are all swamped too. I understand, and I'm happy to be here. And yes, I will get back to the workload, and you'll get back to yours. And you guys I just want to just reemphasize what a wonderful thing it is that this is not coming to you without something in place to help you go online. You're in such a great place because of the work that Emporia State's team has done to ensure that you can move online quickly. So take care, stay well, and well wishes to all of you. And again, Rob, thank you for the invitation. It's great to see you, and it's great to meet all of you today. Take care.
Thanks, Kathy.
Bye.